Hello and welcome back to Culinary Haven. Today we're doing some seasonal baking. It's late autumn and we're baking pumpkin bread. Not only it's delicious, beautiful and really easy to make, it's also very good for you. Let's begin. To make our pumpkin bread, we'll need 450 grams of strong bread flour, 20 grams of skimmed dried milk, 1 teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of yeast, instant yeast, a tin, 425 grams of pure pumpkin puree, 2 tablespoons of maple syrup, 50 grams of butter, and 30 grams of walnuts. We're adding skimmed dried milk to make the bread lighter and fluffier. You can buy it in any supermarket. And we're adding maple syrup instead of sugar to sweeten the dough a little bit. We'll start with sifting the flour into a bowl. Dried milk, skimmed dried milk, a teaspoon of salt, and 2 teaspoons of instant yeast. There are all sorts of lumps and crumbs in here, and we get rid of them all. And next we are going to add the pumpkin puree. I'm going to open this tin. Beautiful orange color, and just put it all in, straight from the tin. Next we're adding maple syrup. This is not a sweet bread, it just adds a little bit of very pleasant sweetness to it. Now we're going to mix it all together. At first it will look like, if you've noticed that there is no liquid in the dough at all, other than maple syrup and the moisture that comes from the pumpkin puree. Don't worry if it looks at first very dry. It won't be. It will be super soft and moist and delicious bread. Right, now I'm going to switch. I'll leave the spoon and just start mixing the dough by hand. If you wish, you can do it in a food processor, but I prefer doing it by hand. So just squeeze it until we have a dough without any dry flour in it. Actually, I'm going to get the rest of the flour onto the worktop and do it there. So even though that it looks sort of dry and stiff, don't worry about that. It will be absolutely fine. It takes a couple of minutes to get rid of the dry flour, but we'll get there. So that's all the flour is in the dough, and it's nice and soft. And now we're going to start adding the butter. So just flatten the dough and take a little bit of butter and just spread it liberally on the dough, and continue incorporating the butter. And we will continue doing this, and in the end the dough will be very soft, pliable and not sticky at all. So just, you get the idea. If you need, you can use a dough scraper to help you along the way, but do not add any more flour. So you see, with each addition of the butter, the dough gets softer and more pliable. And now I'm going to add the last bit of butter, and now we'll incorporate that, and after that we'll add the walnuts. We're adding walnuts for additional texture, a little bit of crunch and flavor. If you don't like walnuts, you can use pecans if you wish. Normally I often prefer pecans to walnuts, but in this particular recipe, walnuts work the best. You see what I'm doing. You see how we incorporate the butter. Don't get panicky, just keep going. It always works. So the dough is now ready. You can see that it's not sticking to my hands, it's very nice and very soft. And now I'm going to roughly chop the walnuts and fold it into the dough. 30 grams is plenty. Even though it looks like not much, it's enough. You will get crunch in every bite. So here how we do it. Spread the dough. It's now spreading easily because it's well kneaded and very elastic. So we add some nuts to it and just fold them in. Spread it again and add some more and fold that. And now just give it a little bit of kneading. Basically what we're doing here is we're just shaping it as we always do when we make bread dough. We shape it into a ball. If the nuts are sticking out or it's not looking really good, don't worry about that. As the dough rises, it will swallow all the walnuts. Okay, so that's that. And now I'm going to dust it lightly with some flour, so it's not sticking to the bowl. Now we're going to put this bowl of dough into the bowl which we made the dough in, and cover it with cling film. Cover it tight. Make sure that there is no air coming in, nice and tight. And now we're going to put our dough in a warm place to develop and rise for 2 hours. So it's been 2 hours and the dough is now ready. You can see it's risen very well, and now we're going to shape the loaf. A loaf tin which we need to grease lightly with a little bit of butter, just a tiny piece of butter. Grease it so it's not sticking. So that's done, and now we're going to dust it lightly with some flour. Sprinkle some flour on your worktop. Look at it, it's so lovely. It's so soft. Perfect. Smells amazing. And now we're just going to flatten it and to shape it as in a sort of rectangle, so we can roll it up into a nice and neat loaf. That should do it. and just roll it up. Brush off the excess flour, don't need that. Just gently, without pulling it, just gently roll it up. Okay, nice. And now just gently press it down with this seam being underneath. Press it down and lightly coat the loaf with some flour. And now we're going to transfer our loaf into the prepared greased and lightly floured baking tin. Like so. That's it. And now I'm going to place this loaf into a plastic bag, and it's the best thing to use. For the loaf to rise. There is no air in it. It will be nice and warm, and it will take about an hour and 15 minutes thereabouts for the loaf to rise in a warm place. So our loaf has finally risen. It took an hour and a half today because my kitchen is very cold today. Look at this. We put a tiny little loaf and now it's all puffed up. And now we're going to bake it in the preheated to 180 degrees Celsius oven for 45 minutes. Here we are. The bread is finally ready, and we're going to unmold it onto this wire rack. It's very hot. We're going to leave it here on the wire rack until it cools completely. So the bread has cooled down. Let's slice it. Just take a look at this. How absolutely gorgeous this is. First of all, you can see how light and fluffy it is. I'm sure you can. Look at that. It's absolute perfection, honestly. You can have it with some jam or honey or peanut butter, or just with some butter. It's amazing. Thank you for watching this episode of Culinary Haven, and until next time, bye. Do let us know in the comments below if you tried the bread and if you liked it. And also please like and subscribe.